Guten Tag. Welcome to my office. Albert here. Let us continue our discussion of the key military theorists. We already learned about Jomini, Clausewitz, and the sea power genius, Alfred Thayer Mahan.
Let's switch gears and turn our attention now to Billy Mitchell and air power. On the eve of World War I, no country was prepared for using aircraft or had even admitted they would make an effective weapon of war. Several had experimented with dropping bombs from aircraft, firing guns, and taking off and landing from aircraft carriers, but no country had designed or built aircraft specifically for war functions. Limited bombing operations had been carried out before 1914, but most thought that aircraft use was limited to reconnaissance or scouting missions. An October 1910 editorial in Scientific American, a respected publication, denigrated the airplane as a war weapon. The article stated, outside of scouting duties, we are inclined to think that the field of usefulness of the aerial plane will be rather limited. Countries that considered themselves more vulnerable to attack tried harder to develop their military aircraft than more isolated countries such as the United States. Thus, the countries of Europe had more pilots, more aircraft, and outspent the United States on military aviation. In 1910, the United States had only 18 licensed pilots and only 193 by 1912. But even so, no country had any aircraft that were specifically designed for combat. None were equipped to drop bombs or had any type of gun, let alone a machine gun. Why did the United States trail so far behind the rest of the industrialized world in military aviation? One reason was its feeling of invulnerability. A second was the official military doctrine that was in place in 1914 and which remained until 1923. Military doctrine defines the roles, missions, and equipment of an armed service. If the doctrine doesn't state that an aircraft are to be used for bombing, fighting, and other military purposes, then aircraft with military capabilities will not be constructed. The U.S. military doctrine, as expressed in a 1914 Field Service Regulation, did not mention bombing, strafing, or air-to-air fighting. The only military aircraft missions mentioned were strategic and tactical reconnaissance. One other factor that hindered the private development of aviation in the United States was the often prohibitive amount of money that had to be paid to the Wright brothers for use of their patented technology. On September 12, 1918, Colonel William Mitchell, U.S. Army Air Service, led a major force of some 1,100 Allied aircraft in a combined arms operation of air and ground forces. This attack by the American Expeditionary Force was on the St. Mihiel salient in France. General John J. Pershing was the AEF commander. This battle was the first time that the American Army fought as a single unit on European soil. Mitchell was promoted to brigadier general by order of Pershing in recognition of his command accomplishments during the St. Mihiel offensive and the Meuse-Argonne offensive. After the armistice, Mitchell returned to the United States expecting to command the Army Air Service, but instead he became the deputy chief. Nevertheless, Mitchell steadfastly advocated the creation of an independent Air Force, and he promoted the small Army Air Service with border patrols, forest fire patrols, aerial mapping missions, and any other activity that demonstrated the value of aviation. When these efforts failed to bring about the changes he sought, Mitchell became increasingly vocal in his arguments, and he publicly attacked superiors in the Army, Navy, and even the White House. Mitchell's agitation eventually brought about the famous series of airplane versus battleship tests from 1921 to 1923. Mitchell's Martin MB-2 bombers proved the vulnerability of warships to air attack by sinking the captured German battleship Ostfriesland. In the test, with 7 land-based planes carrying torpedo-shaped bombs, Mitchell led his squadron 100 miles from land in stormy weather to search out, attack, and sink the unsinkable battleship Ostfriesland. It was all over in 21 and a half minutes. The Congress, Navy, and the War Department referred to the incidents as Fool Mitchell's luck. In 1924, Mitchell made an inspection tour of the Pacific and the Far East, delivering a 324-page report to his superiors, warning of a future war with Japan and making his famous prediction that the Japanese would attack Pearl Harbor on a Sunday morning. He was essentially ignored. Mitchell is similar to Mahan in one respect. He had at least one accident. Mitchell was apparently a fast learner and a natural pilot. During training at Newport News, he was ready for his first solo flight after only 4 hours of instruction. As was customary at that time, when a student was making his first solo flight, all other pilots would land and taxi their planes to the side of the landing strip for the safety of all concerned, and a white handkerchief was tied to the airplane that was about to solo. Mitchell's takeoff was uneventful, but when he circled the field and came in to bring his plane into a landing position, he found that he had gained more altitude than on previous turns, because he was minus the accustomed weight of the instructor in the plane with him. So, when he approached the previously arranged spot, he came in too fast for the 3-point landing, and the momentum of the machine was sufficient to take him off the ground again. He pulled the plane up, making a half loop, and landed nose over. There hung Billy Mitchell, upside down, strapped in his seat by his safety belt. Paul Culver, who was standing nearby, ran over to him, then released his belt and helped him to his feet. No doubt his pride was hurt, but he wasn't, and when Paul assured him of that fact, he took a snapshot of the plane turned turtle with the small Argus camera which he often wore strapped to his belt for just such occasions. Forever after, whenever an airplane turned turtle on landing, it was called a Mitchell. Mitchell's dedication to speaking the truth about air power led to a court-martial trial in 1925. Mitchell faced a court-martial for controversial remarks that he made to the press on the 5th of September. Mitchell blasted 2 military disasters: a bungled flight during which 3 Navy seaplanes failed to make it from the West Coast to Hawaii, and the crash of the Navy airship USS Shenandoah while flying over the Midwest on an ill-advised public relations tour. Mitchell's comments to the press were, "These incidents are the direct result of the incompetency, criminal negligence, and almost treasonable administration of the national defense by the Navy and War Departments. The bodies of my former companions in the air molder under the soil in America, Asia, Europe, and Africa. Many, yes, a great many, sent there directly by official stupidity." Within days, the War Department charged Mitchell with violating the 96th Article of War, which covered all conduct of a nature to bring discredit upon the military service.
At the court-martial, his attorney Reed, who took the case for free, hoping it would make him a national figure, argued that Mitchell's constitutional right to free speech trumped his duties as an officer. Reed praised his client's warnings as patriotic, concluding with a flourish, "Rome endured as long as there were Romans. America will endure as long as there are Mitchells."
The prosecution, however, argued that in the military, free speech would lead to chaos. Claimed the trial judge advocate. A private can berate his captain before his company. The captain can criticize and ridicule his major before his battalion, and the major can lampoon his colonel. Discipline and control under such a view of law would vanish, and the army would become a mob. Public opinion was for Mitchell. After all, he was a dashing war hero and an advocate of air power. Stacks of letters poured in. Mitchell's wife, Betty, would answer them during courtroom breaks. Near Thanksgiving, a group of Texas cowboys sent a live turkey for Mitchell's holiday dinner. They also offered their services. If the bunch of us could do any good by standing back of you with Winchesters while you are telling the court-martial about the negligence in the air service, we would like to be called as witnesses or guards.
But the public's enthusiasm did little good. In his concluding remarks, the judge advocate took a swipe at Mitchell. Is such a man a safe guide? Is he a constructive person? Or is he a loose-talking, imaginative megalomaniac? Is this man a Moses, fit to lead the people out of a wilderness? Or is he not rather that all-too-familiar charlatan and demagogue type? And except for a decided difference in poise and mental powers in Burr's favor, is Mitchell not like Aaron Burr?
After more than 7 weeks of testimony and 99 witnesses, the court-martial came to a close. In a secret ballot, the court sentenced Mitchell to a suspension from rank, command and duty, with forfeiture of all pay for 5 years. The court is thus lenient because of the military record of the accused during the World War, the generals wrote. Unwilling to accept the verdict, Mitchell resigned as an officer in the U.S. Army on February 1st, 1926. Mitchell, through personal association and through his writing, inspired and encouraged a cadre of younger airmen, including future General of the Army Henry H. Arnold, General Carl Spaatz, and Lieutenant General Ira Eaker, who led the 2 million-man Army Air Forces in World War II. General Mitchell died in 1936 before he could see his conception of air power vindicated in World War II. One of the pallbearers attending Mitchell's funeral in Wisconsin was the then unknown Colonel George Catlett Marshall, who had been the Army's chief ground force planner of the St. Mihiel offensive. General Mitchell's crusade was not fought in vain, although he did not live to see the vision reach any degree of maturity. Mitchell's theories of air power convinced America of the ways and means to best organize, train, equip, and employ an air force. Elements of Mitchell's theories have ultimately become enduring doctrine for today's U.S. Air Force.
You are now well versed in at least 4 military theorists. I think I will turn my attention back to calibration of my speed of light experiment. I'm going to tie it into time travel. Ach du Lieber, works well, eh? Schnell, huh? Auf Wiedersehen.